Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 6 of the All You Can Board podcast. My name is Dylan.
And I'm Carlo.
In today's episode, our main course is called Bitter Victory and Sweet Defeat. The topic is about when does losing feel good? When does it feel especially bad? What about winning? When does winning not feel good? Do we care more at certain player counts or with certain games? And overall, what are our thoughts on competitiveness, competition in gaming? And how much do we care actually about winning and losing? And is it different in different situations? So lots to talk about. Before we dive into the main course, as always, we're going to start with the appetizers. And I'm going to throw it over to Carlo to let people know what you brought for the appetizer today.
Okay, so here's the thing. As you know, if for those of you who watch our channel often and saw our channel update video back in January, you may or may not know that we're planning to do a tier list on the designer Uwe Rosenberg at some point this year in 2026. So we've played through quite a few of his games. You know what, I should have gone through the list and counted in advance, but I know we've each played somewhere around at least 20 of his games at this point. And so we decided to do this tier list on him. We picked him as our first designer, mainly because not only is he one of the most prolific designers around today, but we've also played a large percentage of his catalog so far, or I guess of his ludography, especially, you know, of the games that are kind of like well-known and well-respected, highly ranked, that kind of thing. And the ones that we haven't played, a lot of them we have access to. So just for we're not going to go through the list here. I'm just going to mention the ones that we haven't really played yet that we have left to explore. And there's a bunch of others that we still want to get in additional plays of before we do this tier list. But we have not yet tried Ora et Labora, which is one of the kind of older ones, I guess, as well as At the Gates of Loyang and Bargain Hunter are also older ones. At the Gates of Loyang is just about to get a reprint, and Bargain Hunter has been out of print for a long time, and it's an old trick-taking game by Uwe Rosenberg, which, you know, I don't know if he's even done another trick-taking game. And then, yeah, as far as more, and there's also Mercator or Mercator. There's also the two-player versions of Agricola and Caverna, All Creatures Big and Small, and I can't remember what the other one's called.
In the trick-taking one, do you have to feed your family?
No. no family.
Just wanted to make sure.
But no, and it's nice that and Bonanza obviously was bean trading, so you got to assume that was for feeding your family beans. But
right, of course.
But yeah, and then we also still have not yet played Black Forest or Planta Nubo, which were both like co-designs with other designers. So I guess the reason I'm bringing this up today is not only one to kind of chat about the tier list a little bit and what this process is like feeling like since we decided we're going to do it. And, you know, I've been playing through a bunch of, like, I've played Fields of Arle solo a whole bunch lately. I've played some Newsfjord solo. We played Newsfjord with 4 players recently. We've got plans to play, you know, Le Havre and other games. We played a bunch of Oranienburger Canal. And as I'm going through this, I'm realizing there's no other designer really, I think, where I've had this level, this kind of like trajectory with, or where I'm at this point with any other designer in board gaming, where it's a designer who is this kind of like prolific and accomplished, where I've played this many of their games and I rate them super highly, but most of the games of theirs that I was excited to try, I've tried at this point. Like when I look at these games that we have left to kind of play, the ones I'm most excited about are the 2 that we don't have access to yet, or At the Gates of Loyang and Bargain Hunter. Like the other games, yeah, I'm curious, I'm interested to see what they have to do, but I remember the feeling of like, oh, when we hadn't played like Fields of Arle yet and Le Havre, and we heard like all these like the stories and the ratings, and which one are we going to like more? And even though I'm glad we've played them, and it feels good to be on the other side in a way, like that kind of like the mystique, the mystery is almost gone a little bit. And I kind of want to ask you, how does that feel? Like it's that bittersweet feeling of like the magic of Uwe. The more we're playing these games too and seeing more of these similarities, the magic of some of these designs is being lost a little bit too, because the more similarities you see from game to game, you're kind of realizing maybe he hasn't had as diverse of a catalog as you would have hoped before trying a lot of these.
Yeah, I mean, really the biggest diversity for his catalog out of the stuff that I've played is just like when he went into doing the Polyomino games, like I'm not counting Feast for Odin in there, but between like Patchwork and Spring Meadow and Summer, what was the other one? Indian Summer, and there's a bunch in there. Like they're like that to me, when I started playing those, it felt like such a departure for the stuff I associated with Uwe. But beyond that kind of subset of his catalog, I just feel like the rest do have a lot of similarities in comparison to like other, like I can recognize a Knizia design, for instance, or I can recognize a Stefan Feld design, and maybe Stefan Feld's like someone else has a lot of similarities with his. But for Uwe, I just find that like there's a distinct, I was gonna say taste. I've never tasted one of his games, but you know what I mean. Like one of like he has a distinct style, and you know when you're playing an Uwe game. So like, and I also feel like, what's the newest game of his that we've played? Was it Oranienburg Canal right now?
Probably, I think so. I mean, there might be one of those shorter ones that was on BGA. I don't know if Applejack or something is technically newer, but I think it's probably Oranienburg Canal, yeah.
Yeah, and I've just found that like the newest of the games of his that I've played have like I haven't landed with me the same way. Even the ones I've liked, it just hasn't felt as magical as it used to playing. You know, even sorry, like not La Havre, Fields of Arle is the last one that I felt that when playing, but that's one of his older titles that like you even said yourself, you're like knowing what the ones of his that you like and knowing how much you like Feast Road and stuff like that, you're going to like this one. But I haven't felt that with his newer designs, you know, like Oranienburg Canal I liked, but it didn't feel the same way. Atiwa I thought was just okay.
Right. Yeah. Atiwa was the other one. Yeah. Yeah.
So it does feel a little interesting to think that like, not only have we like almost explored all of this, not all of his catalog, but all the ones that we're really interested in trying, the bigger, more important ones, but also is he going to release anything else that's going to really excite us, or is like, are our Uwe days behind us?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, it's almost coming to terms with like, as we're doing this tier list, I'm almost like realizing where he might be in his design career. Like even Black Forest, which is probably his most successful and well-known game of the past few years, again, was a co-design with another designer. And this game was initially like, conceived or whatever like 10 plus years ago and was like just shelved for a while until they brought it back out to kind of like try again to get it over the line. So it also isn't like a brand new design. So I don't know, I'm in this weird spot. Like I'm not going to even get into a certain designer who we mention all too often on here, but I'll just give someone like Tom Lehman as an example, where I tried Race for the Galaxy as his first game, and it's like one of the best games I've ever played. And then as I started playing more, like aside from Res Arcana, playing 3 other games that were sort of Race for the Galaxy spin-offs, like Jump Drive, Roll for the Galaxy, New Frontiers. Jump Drive's great. The other 2 wasn't crazy about, and that made me immediately like sour on him a little bit as a designer at that point too, until trying some more recent ones that I really liked. But anyway, I don't know.
It'll be an interesting exercise to do the tier list for a number of reasons, because I'm also wondering if out of the designers that would show up if I did like a top 10 list of designers, I wonder if Uwe is one of the ones that will have the most divisive scores for myself. I mean, like on a tier list, I'm talking like if we're going like, you know, S to F or whatever. I wonder if he'll have the biggest spread out of the designers I've played enough of to feel like I'd have a good sample size. I mean, I'm curious just because there's some games of his that, well, obviously I love, like Feast for Odin, and there's other ones of his that I'm not so hot on. And it's kind of the whole wavelength style spectrum for Uwe.
Definitely.
So it'll be an interesting one to do. Can't wait till we do that in the next, couple months or whatever.
Yeah. And it's hard to do this evaluative process while like not holding it against him that like, yeah, if he had only designed 5 games and they were all amazing, like, it's weird to fault him for saying, well, you designed a bunch of additional games that weren't quite as good.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the way the game goes, right? It affects your whole, the way people see your catalog as a whole. So anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Really looking forward to digging into more of his games and eventually doing this tier list, hopefully sooner rather than later.
All right. So for my appetizer, we recently played a game of Fromage. It's not our first time playing, but we played a 4-player game in person, and it had been a while since. Well, it had been a while since I played what we at AYCB like to classify a mumble game, but also, or at least like in a bigger group with our core game group, anyways. But also, it had been a while since I played a simultaneous game that at least was that simultaneous, and it got me like just like asking myself a bunch of questions and thinking. And so this appetizer, I wanted to actually just start by like just posing you some questions. This isn't supposed to be like me interviewing you, but just pose some questions before I give my thoughts and stuff, just because I'm curious, as someone else at that table played a worker placement game that was simultaneous, what you thought, and then I'll weigh in with mine. So first of all, just really base, do you like as a worker placement game, or as like Fromage specifically, the simultaneous worker placement aspect, do you enjoy that, or do you prefer it more when it's non-simultaneous and everyone's sort of watching and like you're competing on the same board, whatever the case may be?
I mean, I'll say I've only played Fromage in person once, and the times I've played it on Board Game Arena, it's been asynchronous, so I only have the one play to go off of. It's hard to say because the simultaneous is like directly built into the nature of like how the game is designed. So
Yeah.
if you like, I don't know what a version of Fromage without simultaneous play would look like. If you just said, do you want to play Fromage while taking turns? Then no, I don't think the mini games in that game specifically that you're doing would be interesting enough for me to sit there and want to watch three people take their turn before it comes back to me. So in general, I think I tend to prefer the games that don't have the simultaneous play for a worker placement, but
Yeah.
it's not like a rule that it's not a rule that mechanic shouldn't be simultaneous.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking after, because I found myself multiple times, like, Fromage is a game where it seems like to me in the design of it that it's intended to very much be played in a sense where like, I'm not saying you're not communicating with the other players at the table, but that like I'm doing my thing, everyone else is doing their thing, and you're not really communicating, telling people what you're doing, and then you do it and you spin it. But I found that hard because, this is what I always come back to with simultaneous games, is that it feels like if I'm not communicating what I'm doing, like if I just take my work replacement action, I do it, I take my resource to do it, and then I'm done and we spin. It just feels like so disengaged from the rest of the table that I wonder, like I feel compelled to say, okay, so by the way, I did this and I got myself some cheese and I did this, especially if I did a really good play, right? Like it feels like if I'm not telling that for anyone, are we all just playing 4 different solo games? And like I had a really good time with Fromage. I like Fromage a lot, legitimately. It was just more like a question of, is there something lost by the table not being able to share in everybody's moments, and rather it really just being about your own moments? Or specifically then, is the discussion supposed to be when it spins to you, you're supposed to be like, I can't believe you did this, who took this spot? And you're supposed to be like looking around the table and stuff, because we didn't really do a ton of that. Like there was times where I looked at, I think maybe once or twice I referenced it, but there wasn't many times where a side would come back to me and I would go, oh, Dave, when this side was, when facing him 2 turns ago, he did something that blocked me. I wasn't saying, oh, Dave, I can't believe you did that, because to me it felt like, well, he did that 2 turns ago. Like, does he even know what motivated him to do it at that point? So we lost that banter. And I just thought it was an interesting thing in that I love the simultaneous play in Fromage because of how quick it can make the game. Like the box says it could be 40 minutes, and I believe that. But you do lose something from everyone not participating in everyone's turns. And I just wanted to kind of like see what you thought about that.
For sure, and I think it especially depends on what kind of actions and things you're doing. And like for me, especially when you're activating like the buildings on your board, because people might not see like what you're doing. Like I had one that was just allowing me to draw order cards and also complete incomplete order cards. So I was just like, I didn't feel right just grabbing cards and putting them in my stack, like because they're worth a lot of points. So I didn't feel right just doing that stuff without you guys watching. But it also felt weird before spinning always to be like, by the way, guys, I'm just doing that. Just so you know, I got another thing here. It's like I also don't want to feel like I'm rubbing it in your face that I scored a bunch of points again. But I struggle with this with a lot of these games where I feel like the simultaneous play. It's interesting because usually it's implemented to save time and to cut out the downtime, but I feel like it hurts the games most when it's games that are more involved. Because I think of Planet Unknown as well, where it's like people are like putting stuff down and moving up this track to trigger this thing, which combos into this other thing. Like sometimes your turn has a bunch of stuff happening, and there's 4 or 5 people sitting around the table. You have either no idea what people are doing, or again, everyone's stopping to say, by the way, I did this. And everyone goes, oh, cool. Oh, how about you? What did you do? And then it's like, then was it really simultaneous if we're all taking turns talking about what we did anyway?
Yeah.
But to go without it, to power ahead, you kind of lose out on what's going on.
Yeah. And so does it ever, this is another thing I was going to ask you, I just remembered. Does it ever cross your mind when you play simultaneous games, like specifically that are this simultaneous where someone can do, or Planet Unknown's actually another great example where there's all this combo and all this stuff happening. Does it ever cross your mind like that now you have no agency on if other people are making mistakes in what they're doing, that like unless you're watching everyone's board and then you're that person that's like being like while someone else is doing their mumbling and doing their own thing, you're like I think you just did something wrong over there. Like does it cross your mind, or are you of the, or like, and this is where I sit, or you have the mind where it's like, this game is simultaneous. If someone else makes a mistake, if they take extra points, I can't really control that. I'm just going to try to have the best game I can and not think about that. Like I wonder, because we're talking competition later too, like for someone who's super competitive, are they going to be like really against some of these simultaneous games? Because then they feel like unless I'm playing with the really experienced players that I trust, I don't know if they're going to like get 20 extra points they're not supposed to have, and then I feel like I got beat on a game I should have won,
Okay, it's definitely an issue with some people. Like I've seen this come up in forums a lot before, people saying that sort of thing. Like, and I think in our groups, I think we all agree, like no one in our group takes winning, like winning isn't important to anyone, important enough to anyone in our group. I think that anyone's going to be like enforcing that we all kind of audit each other, saying like, no, we have to make sure that everyone does. Like I've thought about this a lot, even when we, get to the end of games. And it's a matter of like, everyone just count your score and we all just announce our score. It's very rare that we all go through and count like, wait, let's double check. Like even if it's a 1-point win, I don't think we've ever recounted to make sure, because it's like, who really cares? Like it's not a big deal. So I think it really depends on the group you're in, the game you're playing. I guess that's part of what our main topic is going to get into afterwards. But I more for me, I'll say right now, I feel self-conscious about, like, I know everyone makes mistakes, and there are times where I'll announce my move out loud, and someone will be like, wait, what are you talking? That's not right. And I'm like, oh, shoot, you're absolutely right. And then I'm glad I did it out loud so that I can, like, I don't want to make a mistake and not have someone call me on it if I didn't notice. So I think it's good in terms of making sure things are happening accurately, but sometimes the game suffers as a result.
Yeah, I think just to close out this little appetizer, like that's the base of what I thought was interesting, is that I likes the theory behind simultaneous play, and the fact that a game like Fromage can be played in probably 40 minutes reliably once you are playing with a group that knows it, and you're really leaning into the simultaneous nature of it, and just everyone's doing their turns, you spin, everyone's doing their turns, you spin. But it just I find it hard sometimes to get into a groove with them in the same way I do with other games, because I am inclined to announce what I'm doing, to want to know what other people are doing, not because I think anyone's doing anything wrong, but just because, like you said, sometimes I will, sometimes people will, and it's always good to like catch that for the integrity of the game if you can. But then also just because, like if people are doing really cool moves or doing things, I want to know why someone beat me by 20 points, not just be like after the game they're saying, yeah, well, it was back somewhere in the middle, I got this big score, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Like that's something I want to see happen, I guess. And sometimes you lose some of that when you're playing simultaneous. So
absolutely. And can I just really quickly say, I think what I'm going to say, the best game, or the game that does this best is Race for the Galaxy. And part of the reason is that the simultaneous nature is just that whatever action card you see on the table, like you see that what one person picked the develop phase, everyone's going to get to develop. You can see exactly which card someone put down and see like, okay, did they put down a card? Okay, that's a development. It matches the development phase. Cool. And the only other thing you're auditing really is like the one bonus, whether it's like a discount or they draw a card, or so it's very easy to just look around and track and make sure that people did what, they should be doing based on the rules. So
yeah, that's a great example too. I always forget that it has that simultaneous element, but it's like, Fromage has it in a bigger way, because it's like you're like the entire game is essentially simultaneous. But I think Race for the Galaxy is almost like the better balanced example of it, where it's an element of it that it makes it more efficient and quicker, but you still get that sort of inclusive nature of it. All right, well, after those appetizers, before we jump into the main meaty course we've got for you, or veggie course if you're a vegetarian, we don't discriminate here. We are going to jump into a little sponsor segment, and we'll be right back.
All You Can Board is proudly sponsored by Victory Pints, our local game store of choice here in Winnipeg, Canada. We strongly believe that Victory Pints is the gold standard of board game stores, not just here in Winnipeg. Their main priority is having a wide selection of games, many of which you won't find elsewhere. They ship Canada-wide, $15 flat rate, or free shipping for orders over $200, and even take requests to try and order in specific games. They also have a used games section where you can trade in games for store credit, and maybe even find some hidden gems that others have traded in. Note that the used games section is only available for in-person purchases and trades. Again, located in Winnipeg at the corner of Henderson and Hespeler, check them out at victorypints.ca. A massive thank you to Victory Pints for all their support over the years.
All right, welcome back, and we are ready to talk about winning and losing in board games in our main course, which is Bitter Victory and Sweet Defeat. So we called to that because, we're not just gonna. I think the more interesting discussion here that's going to come out of all this is sort of the opposite of what you expect. You almost were taught that like winning feels good, losing feels bad. Whether that's actually the case or not, that's sort of like the cliche way of looking at it. But I think it's interesting to talk about the other perspective of winning necessarily doesn't feel good, or when it feels especially good, and vice versa, especially for losing. So before we start all of this, I think the best way to start this is to kind of define what we each of you competitiveness to look like in board games, because I think that's something that looks different and feels different to everybody, and because there's so like it's a scale. So I was just going to throw it to you first, and then I'll give mine. But like, how do you think about competition? What does competition mean to you when someone says, are you competitive? Like, what are you grading yourself on for that?
Okay, so the first thing I think is like, I think we should define what we think the word competitive really means, because I think there's often like a negative portrayal or a negative connotation that's associated with it. And I think that's sometimes people just call someone or something competitive when I think what they're meaning is like overly competitive. So like if someone's getting to the point where they're taking something really seriously and getting like snappy at people, their behavior is like, that's being overly competitive. I don't think that's being competitive. And so some people say like, well, if you want to win, you're competitive, or if you're taking things too seriously, you're competitive. Again, I think it's just important. I think the official definition has to do with like, something about competing to be superior to others, or to come out on top in a contest with others or something like that. So like I think reading it that way, this being superior to others does sound a bit negative in that sense. But I think like the idea to me, I always think of just the competition of sports, because I've grown up playing soccer like my whole life. And the idea of getting on the field and playing sports against another team, to me, doesn't feel like that should be a negative thing, wanting to win. I think it comes down to having like a sort of social contract of sorts, where as long as everyone is on the same page in the activity, then I think it's really, really fun to be competitive. As long as every single person is on the same page. If even one person out of 20 doesn't want to be competitive and is stuck in this, it's not ideal for the whole group. But also, like, let's say if I'm playing a sport, like if it was my men's soccer team and we're playing against a group of kids in grade 3, like, yeah, that's not fun. Sure, it's competition, but like we're not on equal teams. It's similar skill levels. Like, that's not a level of competition that is enjoyable for anyone. So I think when the stakes are equal and everyone's kind of on the same page is where it makes sense to me, but still has to remain respectful.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I like what you said about if like it's even if one person isn't wanting to be competitive, especially on a team sport or with a bunch of people playing, like that alone can change the feel or the vibe, because they then by everyone else being competitive, it can make that experience a lot poorer for this one person, and that can make the group uncomfortable, a whole bunch of different things. So yeah, it's an interesting nuance. But the way I wrote it down when I was thinking about this is like, you're right in that sometimes when people say, are you competitive? I naturally think people are saying, are you overly competitive? Because I think on some level, we're all competitive in some ways, because whether it's sports, whether it's games, whether it's trying to get a promotion for a job, whether like you're competing with people on the road, you're competing with people sometimes. When you want to change lanes, you can view it that way, right? Like, so the way I wrote it down was a couple of things. I always view, like, when people ask me, are you competitive with things to do with board games, that basically that they're asking, do you like to play to win at all costs? Or another way, are you going where the victory is, fun be damned, right? Like for me, that's the distinction I'm always thinking, but I'm forgetting that some people are often probably not asking me, am I overly am I competitive? They're asking if I'm overly competitive. But for me, it's if I'm doing anything in a board game and I have an option in front of me, and unless I'm in specifically playing in a tournament or competition, but like if we're just getting together with our group of friends and I have an option in front of me and I have two paths and it's like, okay, I could put my worker here and that's going to be really cool to see how this unfolds. Or I could put it here and I'm going to get 5 more points and it'll be the thing that keeps me more competitive. I'm going to go with the thing that's going to be more fun, unless for some reason that day, because we all have these days, or at least I do, like I really need a win or something, right? Like that's where I'm going to go. And so that's why I always kind of define it as like, I feel like to be competitive, you kind of have to say, fun be damned, I'm looking to win. Because to me, and I mean, I guess that's interesting because for me, I just don't find being that level of competitive fun, but some people will. And so then to them, it's not fun be damned, that is the fun for them, right?
Right. Well, so let me pitch something else to you.
Yeah.
What if, like, I think there's something to be said about trying to pull off a fun strategy, like wanting to do a strategy that's, unusual, but then feeling so invested in that strategy and wanting to see it succeed that you get competitive as a result. Like being like, I want to win even more this time because if I pull this off, it'll feel so rewarding. And it's not a toxic, like if you lose, you're probably not going to be disappointed. You're not going to be salty. You're not going to be like a negative presence at the table to anyone. You're probably going to be happy and be like, oh, I came close. Like it was so fun to try for that. So that's not in a way, no one's going to look at you and be like, man, why were you so competitive that game? But it's going to be like, it's awesome that you were invested in this kind of like cool, different strategy you were going for. And I think it can count as being competitive, just wanting to win. Yeah, trying something fun, and like even just thinking about some basic game sessions we've had lately, like playing Cosmo Lancer with Dave, for example, 3 players. Like the stakes didn't feel super high, but like we all felt invested. It felt like a competitive game, but I didn't feel at any point like anyone was like walking on eggshells or like, oh, why are you reacting that way or crossing a line with anything anyone's saying, right?
Yeah. And that's why I think sometimes those tactical games, it's easier for me to get competitive because unless I'm even like a game like Toy Battle that I play like 300 plus times now, because it's so tactile, there's no like, it never feels like, well, I got to do this even though it's not super fun, but this is the way to win because I'm really responding to a completely different battlefield and situation and layout of tiles every time. But like when I think about, coming back to like Magic the Gathering and stuff, it's like the idea of playing a deck that is a meta deck and has a percentage chance to win that is higher than every other deck. It's people who do that, it's because they want to be competitive and they want to win. And that level of competition, being faced with something in a board game, like I said, where it's like, I need to do this strategy. If I don't do this, I have lessened my chances by like 75%. Like if it's a really obvious thing I need to do, but it's not fun, am I going to do that anyways because to try to win? No, like I don't play games that way unless it's a tournament or unless I really need to win for some reason. And that's, I think that's how I always classify competitiveness in my head, is as soon as I am not willing to deviate because it means I'm lower my chances, then I know I'm being competitive. And I played games like that. I played in all the AYCB tournaments on BGA that way. I play a lot of times when I do Castle of Burgundy that way. Toy Battle I definitely do as well when I play online. And I think that I never hit a certain level of fun with those games as I do when I'm not being that competitive, is what I've learned about myself anyways.
Right. And I think when you mentioned too before about like being competitive at certain things, or that everyone can be competitive at certain things here or there, I think that's a big part of what distinguishes people, is how often you pick and choose to be competitive. Like, what are the conditions or the terms that need to be met for you to say, I really want to be competitive at this activity, right? Like in the same way that like, yeah, I play soccer fairly competitively, but I wouldn't go engage in certain other team sports competitively just because, yeah, I won't get into the reasons why.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you too, because a lot of this I think is tied into like the idea of not enjoying losing. Like whether it's just like I kind of don't like losing, or I absolutely hate losing, or the intense desire to win, like wherever on that kind of spectrum. Like, do you think that with most, if not all people, do you think it comes down to people feeling like their intelligence is being called into question, like it's a direct attack on either their sense of intelligence or their sense of self, like their sense of worth as a person. Basically, like if I lose a game, that I am either not as smart as these other people at the table, or I'm not as good as they are. Like it can feel, some people I think take it a lot more personally than others, or take it as a bigger reflection of their personality or their abilities or skill set, just the result of one single game. And I think that's a lot of the time why, like, a longer strategy game, some people might struggle to feel more competitively invested, because, like, yeah, if I'm going to play a game for 2 or 3 hours and feel like I've lost 30 minutes in, and I've got to sit at the table feeling like I'm dumb compared to these 3 people, like, some people might not like that feeling.
Right. And I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but I think that also, like, that's why a lot of the way I feel about competition in games is very much dependent on the game, because, like you said, like, if I'm out of a game in the first, like, legitimately out of a game, like we're playing a splatter game and I'm out in the first, few rounds, like that's a situation where, when we get into it, like, it's going to feel awful to lose, not necessarily because you lost, but because you have to sit there knowing you're going to lose and dealing with the ramifications and the feelings of losing while everyone else continues to play and compete, right? Like, unless you can find something else to, like, I'm gonna play spoiler and just try to, like, ruin everyone else's games or something. But yeah, so I feel like there's situations like that where it'll just feel a lot worse to lose. But when it comes to someone taking sort of the idea of doing poorly or doing worse than someone else at the table, or losing, as sort of a reflection of them, or how they are viewed, or how they are depicted, or how others talk about them, or whatever, I think you're 100% right. Like, I think that it's not always the case, but I think that there's a lot of people I've known in the past, and that even watching, like, playthroughs, or like Magic the Gathering games online, different things I've watched, there's some people where the loss is, like, not debilitating, that's the wrong word, but it hurts them in a level that I don't understand from losing. And maybe that's because I didn't play as many, like, competitive team sports. Like, I did some, but it was never, and I never played on a team that was, like, really, really good, and we were, like, a championship winning team. So maybe I've just dealt with tons of losing. But yeah, like, I do really stupid stuff I was going to swear there, is really stupid stuff in board games all the time. And a lot of it is because I purposely often play games without really thinking my turns through. Not at all. That's the wrong way to word that, but, like, a ton. And I know that I'm opening myself up to making mistakes, but for me, that's how I learn. And that's also how then, if it's a game I love, I'll go back next time and I hopefully won't make that same mistake. Or if I will, maybe that'll be the last time I make it. Whereas you're right. I think other people, it's they leave and they lost, and it's a bigger failure, or it's a bigger feeling of, inferiority or around the people around the table. And that's something I've just never been able to really resonate with, at least in the way that it affects some people.
We talk about this all the time with, like, whether it's, like, just in general in life, like, being scared to take risks because you might not be the best at something, you might not be perfect at something. Like, people might play a game once, do really poorly at it, and think, I don't know if I want to play this again. Maybe it's not my style of game, but it could just be like, you did so poorly, your score was so much lower than everyone else's, that you might feel like, this is a pretty intense game, the stakes feel high, it's a 2-hour game. Do I want to feel like I'm putting my intelligence to the test in this kind of, like, arena publicly with other people again, on display, when I just got absolutely destroyed? Like, do I feel confident enough to win next time, or is it just going to feel bad again?
Yeah.
So
I want to pose this then, and I'll kick this off. We each, or I wanted to see what we each would rate ourselves and each other, or the opposite person, on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of competitiveness. So I brought what I think I would rate myself on a competitive scale, and then also what I think I would rate you.
Okay, before the scales, can we go over the Knizia quote?
Oh, yeah.
We've been dancing around this. Yeah. Okay, so the quote from designer Rainer Knizia that we've gone back to so many times in the past is, "When playing a game, the goal is to win, but it is the goal that is important, not the winning." And I think it's the perfect way to encapsulate how we probably both feel about this, which is as long as you're playing to win, and that's basically just, you're not playing to specifically like, this time I'm going to try to get last and see how low of a score I can get because that's going to be fun for me and I don't care about the rest of the people at the table. Like, that ruins the experience for people. Or if you're playing to just say, I'm going to make sure so-and-so doesn't win, or I want to just try this one strategy and I don't really care what happens. I know it's probably not good. Like, it kind of alters the game for everyone. So I think as long as everyone's playing to win, that's the most important. And I just want to get that context in play before we get to the ratings here.
Yeah, it's a great quote. Okay, so for myself, if I was rating myself competitive scale 1 to 10, I said that I would I took these as an average. Like,
yes.
I can sometimes have some games where I'm a 1, I can have some games where I'm feeling like a 9, but like on average where I think
and this is specifically board gaming competitiveness,
yes, board
right?
game.
We're talking,
yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So I put myself as being 5 to 6 on the competitive scale. And for you, I said I would have put you at a 6.5 to 7.5. Okay, what do you got?
I'm actually very, very close. So here's what I put. I put that you're probably a general average of 6, maybe as low as a 5. I think the thing is, like, when you game with me, I think you're an average of a 6. You might be at a 5 with other people, but I think we bring out a bit of competitiveness in each other. I think you have probably a range of like 4 to 8. Like, I don't think I ever see you go above like maybe an 8 in competitiveness.
Yeah, it's rare.
But I had a general, I think, set a 6 for you. So I think we were pretty spot on there. And for myself, I think average is probably 7, but it goes up to 8 for a lot of games. And I think sometimes, like, I can definitely go up to a 9. Like, I think whether it's the average or highest, I think I'm always going to be a notch above you.
Yeah.
Like, on average,
totally.
the average game I'm always going to be slightly more competitive. And when we're playing our most competitive games, I'm probably going to be a little more competitive still.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I thought it was good for us to kind of like put these here, or even just for the audience to kind of have a general picture of where we each fall when we're talking and which perspectives we're coming from. But it's interesting that we pretty much know each other's competitive levels. Like, we've played enough games at this point that it wasn't going to be a huge surprise. So having said that, before we get into some of the more specific stuff, one thing I wanted to ask is, and this was your idea, so I'm saying I want to ask, but I want to ask you your question. But it's what's worse, being a sore winner or being a sore loser? Which one do you think is worse and why? And then I'll go after you.
They're both pretty bad, but being a sore winner, I think, has to be worse.
Okay,
I think
that's what I have too.
Yeah, I think it's like you're rubbing salt in the wounds. Like, you've already beaten us. Now you're also doing it in like an ungracious way. There's just really no excuse for it. It's one of those things where, like, it's the same way as like when a kid is misbehaving when they didn't get their way. It's like, even though it's not maybe like right, you understand. It's like, okay, I get it. They're acting out because they're sad or because they're upset. But it's like, if you win, you don't have any reason to be like also rude to us. I think I will say for some people it might be a deflection tactic. I think some people are sometimes uncomfortable or don't know how to act when they win and don't know how to play it cool. And so some people might just be looking for something to say and might inadvertently do it. It's not an excuse. I'm just saying I think it can be a genuine thing for some people. Sure.
I had sore winner as well. And again, I agree both can be pretty bad. The reason so first of all, like, people expect losing to feel bad. So I feel like being a sore loser still is, it's not good, but it's understandable in the sense that I know you should feel bad. Not should, but generally losing rarely feels good. The actual loss itself, even if you're just like something about it felt good, like we'll talk about in a bit. But whereas winning, I view it in two different ways. If you're being a sore winner, it's either because there's something going on that you like need the win to sort of be more defining of yourself. Like, it is to your core, like, you need to be viewed as a winner. But the worst thing, and we're seeing this just like really briefly out of board games here, but like we're seeing this is sort of the sentiment I'm seeing a lot just around the world in general right now, is I am not actually here to win. I'm here to make you lose. And that's the other type of sore winner. And I feel like that is the one that I find the most egregious, where it's the idea of someone else losing that is the victory for them, and like I only said outside of board games because I know like that's basically the entire political landscape right now is just, I'm not here to win, I'm here for you to lose, and that makes me a winner. And that is like why I'm someone who's humble to a fault. Like I am uncomfortable when I win because I don't want anyone to think I'm a sore winner. So I like overcompensate by trying to downplay my win or say why I was lucky or whatever. But so I'm also I have that bias where I am naturally, as soon as someone is being cocky, as soon as someone is really boasting and stuff, it's such a pet peeve of mine. Like it's the thing that I dislike the most in personalities of other people. And so yeah, sore winner is just like, it was right away I knew my answer.
Absolutely. Oh, and you're absolutely right though. When someone rubs in, like it's the reason why we always have those comebacks in Rocket League. As soon as people start talking trash in their head, it's like that's it. I want to win twice as bad now. That was a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, so going into kind of piggybacking off that into our first one here. When does losing feel good? Because I feel like this is one of the probably the most interesting things we're going to talk about, is the one I'm most excited to kind of discuss, because it's the thing that, especially in this day and age in 2026, I feel like losing more than ever that I can remember in our society is viewed as such a bigger thing. Like you don't want to lose, you need to win. And there's more gravity placed on them. So from the board game perspective, specifically, when does losing feel good? Do you have like any game examples, or do you have like just like thoughts of what it takes to make what's the difference between you losing a board game and you feeling like that was a good, not a good loss, but like I feel good about that, versus you losing a game and being completely like disappointed or it affecting whether you like that game, et cetera, et cetera. To me, the games where I've lost it and it's felt the best are the ones where, one, I can see the ways I can improve, and the ways that I can improve are things I'm willing to do. And what I mean by that is, if I lose a game, and this is kind of getting ahead onto when losing feels bad, but if I lose a game and I can see, well, here's the way I would have won, but it would have been less interesting for me to do those things, but it would have meant victory. One, the loss feels worse, and two, I'm less inclined to come back to the game because I know if I come back and I'm either going to like play it the way I won and lose again, or I'm going to play it in a way I don't want to play it just to win. And that decision will always be one way for me, and then it just makes it less interesting. So I feel like that right away, if I can like really discern, I'm like, oh, next time I'm going to try this, and I bet you I can really, improve my score or whatever. That right away, the loss feels better because it's almost getting me excited. The losses got me excited about when I can win. And so that is number one. And then when losing feels fine to me, maybe not completely like amazing, but it feels fine to me if the game is one that's way more luck based. And so like I'll use an example of Can't Stop, right? Like I know that you're going to eventually have a lot to say about Can't Stop's like luck system and everything. But what I mean by that is the randomness element of Can't Stop. I've never played a game of Can't Stop, even when someone has had a ridiculously good streak of like dice rolls and stuff. I've never really been pissed playing Can't Stop. There's been times where I've been frustrated a little bit, but not to the extent of like that loss felt bad, because for me, I know what I'm getting into. I'm getting into a game where someone could just roll 3 12s and I'm going to like, face palm and be like, what are the chances of that? But like, that is the game. And so it's like in Toy Battle. Like Toy Battle is we'll get into this after, but I have it in Losing Feels Good and Losing Feels Bad, because it's almost like the anomaly here, because it feels so bad to me when someone gets 3 army men, and I've had it happen somehow so many times where they just and when I do it, it just doesn't feel good. But there's something about randomness and luck that I'm more forgiving, is what I should say, to losing. Maybe it doesn't feel amazing, but it's not as bad.
Definitely, yeah. It's like it's the same. Whenever you can blame luck rather than having to, find fault in your own actions, it always softens the blow a little bit. And
sorry, before I throw it to you, I just wanted to. So these are the games I wanted to give it as examples of ones that everything I just said that works for them. So innovation, Can't Stop, Ink and Gold, Flip Tunes, Toy Battle, Santorini, Hot Streak, Brass is the biggest one. And the Brass specific one is because I didn't mention this, but games that are really strategy based. Tend to be the ones that present after they're done, where I can go and say, oh, if I would have went this route, or if I would have tried this strategy. And so a lot of the intrigue is what keeps me feeling better about the loss. And so Brass is just one that has it's like strategy rich, but I could have put really any, like a lot of Uwe games would classify there where losing doesn't feel bad because I'm already thinking about like, well, I'm going to go into next time I'm going to play a game where I don't feed my family. I'm going to see if that works. So.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. No, those are all good reasons, and some of the ones you mentioned I hadn't considered at all. For me, what I had kind of come into this with was that when the result of when my loss is a direct result of a great play by someone else, where like one of those like a tip your hat to this person for just outplaying you, that's when the loss feels good, because that's when I can truly say I'm if you had asked me, would you rather win and feel like it was undeserved or anticlimactic or like some small whatever kind of play, or would you rather have lost to someone on this brilliant play that's going to make for a memorable story? I would always rather lose to have that big play, that memorable story. And a lot of the times it's not just for the memory, but it's to see what's possible in a game, like how big of a play can be made. And we love, like, we're the type of group that, I know there's a lot of groups that they just like, they start the game, they play through the game, they don't really talk through stuff. The game's over, they put it away, they get the next game. Like, we talk through our turns, we analyze stuff through the game. At the end of the game, we're often saying like, oh, and I think this might have been, we're always talking about the TSN turning point. Yeah. Where was it? and that happens a lot. And I pointed out this happens a lot more than with Braden than with anyone, I feel like, where I find when I'm playing games with Braden and I'm in the lead, he's often the person to like stifle my plans. And I've had multiple losses where it's a direct result of like one or two plays that Braden made at a key point in the game. And there's a part that feels bad because it's like, it feels like this person like robbed me of like I had it and you took it away from me. But it's also one of these like, you absolute brilliant son of a, like I'm just sitting there like happy for him in the moment, and like the fact that the game allows for a big moment like that is so satisfying.
I feel like that's why I'm more competitive. Part of what you said was why I'm more competitive in 2-player games, is because if someone does a really good play like you just described in a 2-player game, they did it, you're only challenging the one person across from you. You're only reading their plays and everything. When you do a really good play in a 3 or 4 play game, it's not that I'm saying it's less than, but there's so many variables. If I'm playing with 4 people, 2 other people at the table could have made mistakes that allowed another person to get a bunch of points, and I lose to that person, and none of the loss has anything to do with me. It has to do with someone else missing something, or someone else be unwilling to stop someone, or then whatever. Like, there's so many variables I can't control that I'm not saying it feels worse. I'm just saying that I think that's why I'm less competitive, is because I just sort of resign myself to knowing I could play perfectly, but if all of a sudden Braden makes a play or you make a play that opens the door for someone else to get 30 points by accident, it's like I can't really fault myself, but also that comes with the nature of a 3 or 4 player game. Like, that's what I signed up for too, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so on the flip side then, when does losing feel like, I'm not going to say bad, because like I feel is less interesting, but when does it feel especially bad? Like when especially for us who we don't really get too down on losses, when are the times that you actually feel bad having lost?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of just like general statements, then I'll give you a very specific game example that we were both part of. So in general, if it's a long game and you can fall far behind early on and spend like, I don't know, half the game or more than half the game knowing that you have no chance of winning, but you're kind of stuck in the game, I think that's when losing feels bad. Getting targeted or ganged up on unfairly or excessively can make losing feel really bad, because it feels like, again, you never had a chance. Feeling like you never had a chance just due to bad game design, bad luck in some way, or getting dealt cards that don't allow you to do something early on, or whatever. We don't see this a lot. Or if you're in the lead but you lose last second due to bad luck, like something like the game is decided on a die roll, or the game is decided by the flip of a card at the very end, it can feel bad. But the one example I'm going to highlight, which kind of goes into the getting targeted or ganged up on a little bit, is a game of, so we played Rising Sun twice, about a year or two apart, I think. Years ago now. This was maybe 8 years ago or something like that. It was a long time ago. And the first time we ever played, I believe it was our first time for all of us playing, and I used the Fox clan, which was, I think, one of the expansion clans, and I won, but I ended up feeling while we were playing, like, it felt like they were overpowered. Like, I didn't feel like I played particularly well. It just felt like I was kind of following the asymmetric power and felt like, whatever, I lucked into the victory a little bit. The next time we played with the same group, plus I think one more person, and at the start there was some talk about, like, oh, Carlo cleaned up last time, like, we can't let him get an early lead like last time. I was playing as a different faction, and I got, like, decimated quite a bit in the first kind of, like, set of battles. And I already knew, like, I am so far behind, like, I have to find some way to come back into the game. And then, like, the next, like, battle phase or negotiation phase or whatever, the table talk was still about, like, we still have to keep an eye out for Carlo. And I tried to plead a few times and say, like, guys, I'm already in last place by a lot. I think, like, if you know what my faction can do, you'll see there's really not much I can do. Like, I'm barely hanging on as it is. If you guys attack me anymore, I'm going to be completely out. Like, I'm basically completely wiping out my presence on the map. I'm going to be done before we're even an hour into this game. And they were like, no, he's deflecting, this happened last time, whatever. Surely enough, you guys, and you weren't, like, one of the ones, like, I felt like ganging up or anything, and it wasn't, let me just be clear, there was nothing that felt like socially I was being targeted. I didn't feel like someone at the table is directly targeting me, Carlo, as a person. That's someone who doesn't like me. So I want to be clear, if anyone who was in that game is listening to this even. But it was just a matter of, I think they misread the state of the game, and as a result targeted me when I knew I was already in last, and I spent and it's Rising Sun's like a 3 or 4 hour game. I spent the majority of that game having no chance and, like, being involved in almost no battles. I had no map presence.
Stop! He's already dead!
And I know you guys all felt bad later in the game, and it was like, man, we really did come at him too hard early.
We only played that game those 2 times as a group, like that group, and so you're right in the sense that, like, I can't remember the whole circumstances of the second game, but when you don't know the game well enough, it's possible to misread, like you're saying, even more. And so even like a game like I only thought of this because you said this, I didn't even have it written down, but like Tammany Hall, when we played and I was out, like that was a little bit different because that was early on, so it wasn't so much like I'm not saying you guys misread the situation, but like that was our first time playing, so we don't even know if we really misread the situation. Like, we're going with the
did though.
We have, right?
And that was the exact. I didn't mention it because I thought it was going to be your example, but that's exactly what I thought of. You were in a good position. We came at you hard, knocked you out, and then the next round, people were like, "No, he's still too strong. We have to come after him." And then it was like after that, we all talked for much of the game about, like, "Oh, we feel bad. We really did too much to Dylan early. That was unfair." And the thing is, it sucks to be in that position. And the reason why I didn't ever play Rising Sun again was I'm like, I would never want to know that someone else at the table had that gaming experience, because like that wasn't enjoyable for me to play the game. Losing is fine, I don't care. Even I have lots of games where I end up with 0 points, but if I feel like I have no chance that early, it just takes the fun out of the game.
Yeah. And so basically what I have written down is so much of what you said. Like, I have it feels bad, especially on long games, especially if grasp of rules / complexity has factored in. So like, and I put Splotter in brackets, where I think that's why I'm never gonna really super enjoy a lot of Splotter games. Like Bust is an exception, obviously, but Food Chain Magnet, when we finally do give that a shot, like if there's a chance that I could completely be out, you know, with 2 hours to go, it's just like that's less fun than for me, because I wasn't going in to compete at that level in the first place, and now it's a game that's going to punish me for not competing well enough early on, and especially early on, if usually on like 3 or 4 player games, if I am going to be competitive, I'm not competitive until like halfway through. It's just a weird thing with me. Like, I kind of start off a little more carefree, and then when I start honing in later sometimes, but. So yeah, I had all those written down, and then I just wrote down that toy battle, like I mentioned, it's on both mine, and I can't really figure this is. I don't have an answer, so I'm not even going to really delve into it. But sometimes toy battle feels great to lose, and sometimes I get so frustrated losing a toy battle. And I know some of the reasons, like I described with the army men pieces and stuff. But there's other times where I don't fully understand what it is. But I think it ultimately comes down to I will be playing someone who will take like a minute and a half on BGA because you have a timer, and they'll take like the full minute and a half to think out their move, and then they find this really good move and they make this play. But I don't want to like. I know I could do that. I have every right to. I could sit there for the next 2 minutes and I could be like, okay, what about this? Oh, but this. But I don't like that process. That process to me has never been something that I really revel in. Certain games, certain times, but like with Toy Battle, I want to just kind of like go through it, and then I feel almost like more proud when I have a good play come together because I found it without the deep thinking, and to me that's the victory. So it's almost like that's what I'm playing for when I'm competitive in games: is can I win and can I find interesting plays and strategies while not really thinking too hard about it? Because then it's almost like I don't know, it's just like more like it's I know it's more luck based too, but it's just more satisfying to me.
I love seeing this dilemma that you have with Toy Battle because I can see that you don't want to play it competitively and get like too much better at the game and play at a high level, but the game is too good to stop playing and only rely on in-person plays, so you just keep forcing yourself to play it on Board Game Arena and get upset about the fact that you're getting forced to play optimally against players who are really good.
I've taken many days breaks of Toy Battle where I'm like, I just can't play this game over. I don't think I like this game. I'm gonna this is a skip it. This is a skip it now. It's just like
this is like the definition of first world problems here.
Yeah, honestly.
Oh no, this game is too good that I have to keep playing it and getting better at it and playing against other people who are also good. Oh no.
Okay, so flipping it then, when does winning not feel good? We kind of talked about this a little bit, but just kind of like really hone in on it. And I can go first on this one. So I'm going to start with an example. Moon Colony Bloodbath is one that I can't even remember if I won the last time I played. If I didn't, I think I was second. So and the other time I came in last. But that is a game I know it'll never feel good to win. It'll feel good to play, but it'll never feel good that I won. I won't really care who wins because that game is so chaotic and so much about just surviving that to me, like winning in that game is just sucking the least. And I had this conversation with Dave a little bit where it's like, you didn't really win. You just were the best loser when you play Moon Colony Bloodbath. And so that one, it's a unique one in that I'm not saying the game is bad for it, but I don't think I'm ever going to feel good about winning Moon Colony Bloodbath. I'm just there for the experience, essentially, at that point. And then I have, if luck is like a huge factor, and it has to really be luck based. Like I'm not talking even can't stop. I'm talking like really like you almost said, like where something is decided because of a flip of a coin type thing. I will never really feel good about that win. It'll just be like that's how the game ended. It's not going to be like me fist pumping because of that or anything like that. And the last one is just if I'm winning by too much. Like if I'm winning by like 50 points or something, because like I said, with me being like feeling like I'm humble to a fault, it no longer feels good because now I'm already asking myself, like, should I be holding back? But then are they going to be like offended that I'm holding back? So I should just keep destroying them more. Like it's like, it's rare. I'm not that good at games. I'm constantly destroying people, but it just doesn't, there's a limit. There's a point where I'm just like, I don't even know necessarily how to keep playing because I think everyone knows that this is a win. So like, I'm just trying to have fun, but then also I just keep winning by more. And it's just like, it's rare, but it happens and it never feels great.
That's a good point. It is a weird situation to be in. For me, I would say it's a situation where you win either due to someone else's play or someone else's misplay. So couple examples I'll give is one, like let's say I'm in second place and the person who's in third or fourth attacks the person in the lead. when it's not even my turn or whatever, and then as a result the person in the lead falls behind and I win, like they did something to steal points from that first player or whatever. So yeah, if like by no action of my own I just sort of find myself going from second into first, that doesn't really feel particularly good, because it's like I didn't do anything, I just lucked into it completely.
Do you think that makes it, like, just 'cause that was interesting, do you think that makes it harder? Like, I just think about like how basically almost, you could almost say every 4-player game, for instance, has the possibility that like there is a chance a decision could come down at the end of the game where someone who is in like 3rd or 4th place and maybe they can't even win has to do something that affects either the player in first or the player in second. And we've had this happen recently. I can't remember what it was. Like, I can't remember which game it was now. We were playing with Kevin and essentially like someone had to be impacted, and it was either he's going to sit there, one of us is going to sit there being like, okay, which person should I mathematically impact, like who's like, or I just going to pick somebody. And if that decision ends up creating the winner of the game, is anyone really going to feel good about that? It really essentially one person deciding the winner, like the king making type aspect.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because like a lot of games don't, if it's a game where it's just the most points wins and you can't lose points throughout the game and there's nothing that you count at the end of the game, like I'm trying to think of like maybe something like Babylonia or Renature, these Knizia tile laying games where like when the game ends there's no counting additional points, it's just whatever is on the score track. I guess Renature has a bit of that, but maybe those kinds of games, like even if you target the person in lead, you can't steal their points. So in that one I don't think you could really luck into the victory in a game like that. But I'm thinking if there's some type of end game evaluation where you look at a board state and like someone was defending a territory or something like that, like in an area majority game, I guess it could happen in something like El Grande and someone does something to the leader and as a result they lose the lead and I sneak ahead in the win. So I think it really depends on the game design as to whether that's even possible. Another way would be if someone makes a misplay. So we've talked about this before with rival cities, where it was just like there was something you took your eye off of that you didn't notice that I could have won. So I remember we both just thought like, it was a weird feeling because I didn't want to like rub in. It was like, well, if you had paid closer attention, you wouldn't have lost. But it was also like I didn't feel good because I didn't make a good play to win. I just got lucky that you kind of missed something. And to be fair, again, it was our first play and there was a lot of stuff to keep track of. So it's not like it was it wasn't like a ridiculous oversight. It was understandable, but it still didn't feel good to win that way.
Yeah, totally. And it made complete sense. And in reversed roles, I'd feel the same way. But it's funny, like I was thinking about that one because I don't know if you saw, I might have even deleted it because I remember at the time it was like worded in a way that I didn't like. But someone had made a comment on one of the videos where he talked about this rival cities thing in a different video, and they said something along the lines of, so you should point out if someone makes a play like that. Like you should say, well, you should be going here and doing this action. Like you shouldn't let them make that misplay. And I thought about replying, I ended up not, because I'm like, well, but then at that point, like essentially, are you just like every time someone's taking the turn, if you see a more optimal play, you're supposed to be like, oh, you should actually go here, because then you're just quarterbacking the entire game for all players, right? Like
then let's all talk about the best decisions together. Let's all decide what everyone should do on their turn together.
Play cooperatively.
Yeah, like,
but like, yeah, so like it's an interesting thing because in that exact moment, that was the last decision of the game. So your options are, well, I say, okay, well, I go here now because you didn't grab the spot. Or I say, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Like, because I'm going to win if I go here. But then at that point, when will any of us win? Because it's going to be like, well, if you go here, like, you know, like I even hesitate to call it a misplay. And I'm not saying that because I don't, like, it bothers me, but just in the sense that like, that's the game. Like it's a tug of war and there are a lot of things to look for. And if you take your eye off one of them because you feel confident somewhere else, like those are the opportunities the other person's supposed to look for, right?
Absolutely.
There's been times in games where someone makes that play and I could have capitalized, and I don't even see that I could have capitalized, and I miss the chance to win because of even though they did a quote unquote misplay. And so, like that to me is just, that is the nature of games. Mistakes happen in sports, mistakes happen in board games, and it's up to whether or not the person that's competing against that team or that person, do they capitalize, right?
Exactly. But I think it's important to mention that, like, if we were playing let's say a game like Magic, and let's say I had a card in play that says, like, when creatures attack you, they die automatically. If you tried to attack me with a creature, that's something where I would point out and be like, oh,
Right,
just
right,
a
right.
reminder, if you do that attack, like, it's going to die immediately. And then you'd go, oh, right, if I forgot you had that card. That's not one where I'd say, okay, it dies immediately. You go, oh, I forgot that card. It's like, well, too bad you made the mistake. Like, so that's one where, yes, of course you can point it out, but the example we gave before with rival cities, it made sense.
But it's interesting because then if you think about like at the competitive level, people would not point that out. That then they would like
Yes.
they would let the mistake happen and they'd be like, okay, well, your creature's dead and it's my turn now. And like that's like, and I get it. Like if you're playing the Magic Worlds, you're not supposed to say to the person like, or you shouldn't even be expecting that someone's going to point out that you didn't read their card. You're playing at a high level of competition, right? But I just feel like that is almost like that right there kind of explains our level of competitiveness. Like neither of us when playing Magic against each other is going to like take an opportunity like that to be like, no, you can't do that. And like it's same, we take mulligans all the time in board game. I'm not all the time, but we usually ask permission. We say, oh, I just forgot about this. Can I grab that back? And it's very, very rare that people at the table are like, no, you can't go back unless it's like egregious what they're asking.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I want to throw one more quick example out there, just because it's happened a couple times, is winning in modern art where someone overpays you for something and then you win by a narrow margin. Like someone pays you, let's say, $58 for a painting that is only going to sell for 60. You're like, well, you're profiting 2, you just paid me 58, and then I win by like 12 at the end of the game. Then it's kind of like, I won because that person misevaluated something.
Yeah,
So
totally.
It's one of my only complaints about modern art, and it's something that I've only noticed a bit more the more we've played it.
And so on the flip side, we know the winning can feel good, but what are some examples and why do games feel amazing to win? Like when they feel especially good? The examples I wrote down for games that feel to me as like, especially as someone who doesn't put a ton of stock in winning, that feel really good to win. Brass Birmingham, I've only played it the 1.5 times, but it felt good to win that first game because I tried a strategy. It was my first time playing, and like that type of game, it felt good to win. I felt good about it. Keyflower, it feels good to win. Zuvadis feels good to win because the level of like understanding of people at the table and negotiations and tact and like planning a strategy that has variables all over it, that feels good to me. Through the Desert, because it's such a good tactical game in each turn, that it just feels like when you win that game, you had to make so many tough decisions to get there, so it feels like an accomplishment. And then I have same thing with like Terra Mystica, Clans of Caledonia, Age of Innovation. Those have always felt good to me to win. Not always. There's been some games of Terra Mystica that haven't, but I would say with Clans, the games I played online, and Age of Innovation, it feels good in the sense that once you know what you're doing, having a good score and like being the one who came out on top feels good because there's so many different things you're managing, so many like 5 different scoring objectives or 5 different rounds. Can you get them all? Can you spread it on the map this certain way too? Like there's enough going on that it feels like an accomplishment.
Yeah, lots of good examples. I think we're seeing some parallels in the sense that it's like the longer, more strategic games, like with some of the ones I'm going to name here as well. So Bus feels really good to win at. Part of it is that it's like you really only get points from that one action, the Vroom action, right? So it's like you have to really claw to even get any points in that game, let alone win. Hansa Teutonica, which we've talked about, is just like it's such a tough game to win at. You can't really make many mistakes. Keyflower I also had on my list. I also have challengers here because in order to win, not only is it like you're probably playing with a lot of players and feels like it's a tournament, so winning when you have a lot of opponents just inherently can feel better, but also it probably means that you had a really powerful deck that you managed to pull off, and that just feels good.
See we won't have time for it here, but like we'll need to discuss this somewhere else because that one doesn't feel good to win to me. Challengers, it doesn't feel good to win challengers to me, but it doesn't feel bad to win challengers either. I feel indifferent at times because some of the games I win, like against other people, like even the last time we played, it is absolutely because they just had a really unlucky flipping of their deck. And so it didn't really feel like I won or I even got a good sense of whose deck was better. It just feels like they didn't get the draws they wanted.
Sorry, just to be clear, I don't mean winning a single matchup in challenges. I mean like winning
the whole...
the whole like
Yeah,
at the
right,
end.
right.
Just I mean because and it's not the winning as in like the game is over and now I have been crowned the winner. That is the part that feels amazing to win at. What I mean is if you won, chances are you got to see your deck at its most powerful.
Right.
So it's the feeling of like when you do win, chances are your deck did some crazy stuff that you might not be able to replicate ever again while playing challengers. So that's the feeling I meant, kind of.
That's a good point too, because something I had written down was it feels amazing to win if your win had a bunch of good plays in it. And you're right, if you've won challenges, you've probably at least seen your deck like perform in a way that has a bunch of good plays, and so you're riding that high a little bit. I don't feel like I've ever felt like it was an amazing win unless I had more than one play that I was really proud of, or that was really like game changing. Like I think the only time I can remember had there been like only a single play, and this is so long ago, is when we played that game of Renature at the cabin. I think it was a 3-player game.
I know exactly which game you're talking about.
There was just like one play, and like those type of plays can sometimes be the game defining thing that makes the win feel good. But I feel like I'm less like feeling good about the win and more I'm just feeling good about the play that got me there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's the validation that play might have been the difference between winning and losing, rather than just the feeling of yay, I won. So a couple others I want to throw out. I also had two innovation. It's not just the chaos, but the possibility for comebacks. I'm going to mention Agricola. I'll be quick about it, but just seeing a plan come together with the cards when you look at your 14 cards before the game, and when you win the game at the end and you look at your whatever 8 or 10 cards you've played, and seeing that it all came together is just so rewarding, and it's a really tough game to win at. But the one that I would say is the most rewarding or feels the best to win at so far has been probably Tigris and Euphrates. And the reason why and what has set it apart for me from these other games comes down to something we sort of touched on before, is the fact that this game has the ability, like no other, to have a target on your back where people can actually come after, like all gang up on you. And rightfully so. Like, if you know that someone has this giant kingdom and they've just been raking in these points and they're connected to a temple and they're just getting free points every turn, and the table talk starts happening and they're like, so-and-so is really powerful, like, we gotta try to stop Carlo, and you can just, it feels like someone's jumping on top of your back, another person's trying to pull you down by the legs, someone's punching you at the same time, and it's just to manage to hold that off and win, you just feel like a god when you win in Tigris and Euphrates.
Yeah, I mean, I got that sense even just from the couple times I played. I'm not saying like the sensation of winning, but like even when we played at the cabin, even though I don't feel as strongly about it as you guys do, I had a pretty good game, or like a score wise, when we played at the cabin, and I could see how being good at that game would feel very accomplishing. It's maybe not exactly 1-to-1, but it's like the board game equivalent of how I feel playing like Dark Souls and Elden Ring. Like I'm not competitive even in solo video games really, but when I have to fight a boss, 100 times and I finally win, it feels damn good. And I just feel like Tigris and Euphrates is one that has enough moving parts, and especially with a full 4-player game or whatever, and everything that changes on that battlefield, everything you have to consider, winning just feels like an accomplishment. It feels like you want to like wipe your brow and be like, oh, like I earned that.
If you have like life achievements, I think just like winning one game of Tigris and Euphrates should be on there. You check that off. There you go. That's one life achievement, or board game achievement at least. But
yeah. And then so before we close this off, one last thing I want to touch on, and this was actually your idea, but I think it's makes sense, especially because we're featuring more of this stuff on the channel now, is like for solo modes in board games. It's obviously often that you're either doing one of two things. You're either competing for a high score or you're playing against an automa. So speaking from, I've been playing a ton of solo games recently, and I would say that I almost never feel good about winning when I'm just competing for scores. I almost never view it as winning or losing, even if it says like, here's the table. And if you get like 0 to 100, it's like, try again next time. And if it's like 101 to 150, that's good. Like I rarely put that much stock in that, beside it being a benchmark to like what an average score is. It never really feels good. The only time I can really think of that it did is playing That's Pretty Clever, and twice as clever and getting like a really, really high score, and it almost feeling like that was like, why do I play the game now? Like I've gotten the highest score I'm gonna get. Like that maybe, but it's rare that I feel super strongly about chasing scores in solo games. Automas, very dependent on the automa. Some are really well tooled, and it feels like not only does this feel like a player, it feels like the scores are exactly in the ranges that a player would score, but each game has a variable, so you feel like I'm playing against a better player this time, or a slightly worse player, or a player I had to outsmart here. And there's other automas where they remove so much of what the PC player, the AI player does, that it almost feels like they're playing a completely different game than you. And at that point, it's just like, it's like a score chase masquerading as an automa. So it's hard to like put like blanket all with the same coat of paint, but some of them feel great. Some of them don't. I would say, unfortunately, more often than not, I'm not playing solo game. Like I would say more often than not, it doesn't feel great to win in solo games. That's why I think I feel extra good about the ones that it does. Like Civolution, I love the Ottoman Civolution. I love trying to chase it. It's really hard to win in the times I've played, so it feels good. But that is few and far between in my experience.
Okay, so this is going to be interesting because I've thought of this not only from solo gaming, but even just like playing against an automa. Like whether you have a bot additional player in a game that's for like a multiplayer game or on like an app or whatever. But let's start with the solo thing, because I've found that even though I don't do as much solo gaming in you and stuff, and I like very like interactive games and whatever, I find that when I do play solo games, I have preferred the kind of just like do your own thing and see what your score is over the automa, just because I don't like managing a bot player.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
if I will say with a caveat, like I remember when I tried Dune Imperium solo a couple times, that was just like you flip a card for the automa and it just shows you what action space that is blocked for you that you put like their worker on. That was easy, and that one I thought was awesome actually. So like if it's very easy and it feels like an automatic, like I flip a card, do a thing, and it's done. But when there's like a flow chart or there's like multiple pages worth of rules for the automa, that's where I check out and I just go, then I'm probably not even going to bother trying the solo mode. It feels like a bit too much for me to want to learn. In terms of winning and losing against it, so here's the thing. If let's say Erase for the Galaxy, the app, the Keldon AI like is known as sort of being like one of the best AIs in board games, and like the hard mode Keldon AI, even someone like me who has played on the app over 2,000 times, my win rate against that bot on hard is probably like 33 or 35%. This is my most played game ever, and I'm losing 2/3 of the time against this AI. Like it is really, really hard. And it's funny because when I lose, the stakes feel low because I'm like, whatever, it's just a stupid program. Like, it didn't outsmart me. It's just a bot. Like, whatever, it was programmed in. Like, you had the advantage of, whatever bot, you had the advantage of all this research and study and data to gather from, and you know what I'm going to do and all this kind of stuff. So it feels almost like it's a hollow victory. But the second I beat it, I'm like, yeah, eat bot. Like, how does it feel? You're a program and I beat you. It's just like, it feels so good. But when I lose, it's like, whatever. I didn't want to win anyway. It wasn't even
like
fair
that episode of Office of Dwight versus the computer machine salesperson or whatever, where like he's the best salesman in the company, but he's competing against the online store sales or whatever, and he's Dwight versus the robot. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that, and like, I know that's off topic, but yeah, like I agree with you on automas and stuff in terms of either it just being like a flipping a card or following a flow chart or whatever. And it's interesting because from a competitive level, like it being more complex and having a flow chart and being more nuanced in what like all the variables are and how it considers turns doesn't feel any better to me to win, because it's trying overly hard to emulate a player, which it'll never be able to do in a physical version, and it's only increasing my overhead. So everything about the competition level now feels worse. Whereas like Clans of Caledonia, I'll come back to flipping one card but it actually populating the board like a player would, even if it doesn't feel optimal, it's at least blocking me, and it's at least like taking territory away from me. It's making me consider things differently than playing the original solo mode in Clans, which is just a score chase and you're on the the board by yourself. Like that's the first game I've played 2 different modes like that in the same game, and it was just so interesting how I didn't dislike either, but I so much preferred the one where there was an actual other pieces on the board, that it just made me realize I'm not as crazy about ones where it's like, at least so far, I'm not crazy about ones where it's just like, yeah, play fully by yourself and see what the highest score you can get is. I'm curious to try that with Newsfjord, because I've heard that that's kind of what Newsfjord is. Maybe I'm wrong, but and that's a really highly regarded one. But yeah, I don't ever really feel that competitive playing solo games. It's more of just like a relaxing exercise. Even when I'm grueling over decisions, it just feels like I wanted to play a board game. I couldn't play with other people, or I want to play more frequently, that I can meet up with people, and it's just like catharsis to like be able to interact with the board game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one last thing here. Is if you played a board game, well, I'll start by sharing my stance on this, because it's what's leading to this question. Is when I play one of these Uwe games where it says like, if you exceed like a target, or it says like, if you can get over 120 points, that is considered an exceptional score or whatever. And that sometimes it just gives you one target in the solo mode. I've found that when I'm able to exceed that, I almost feel like I'm then done with the game. And I've wrestled with before being like, oh, well, if I played that well that I achieved, like, why would I come back and play this solo again? But then I'm also wondering, am I doing the game a disservice? Like, if I were to play against human opponents, is it going to be a lot harder to achieve that score? You know, then you're wrestling with, is the game that much better solo that, like, now I've kind of, like, I'm done with it because I've achieved my target? Or should I now kind of, like, stop playing it solo and try to replicate that against opponents?
Yeah, the example I can think of, because I haven't played many solo games enough to kind of achieve their top level score, but the one time I did was Cartographers years ago now. But I remember like it was pretty early on too. Like I played the solo mode less than 10 times, and I achieved the score that puts you at like, it was like whatever 30 plus or whatever, and it says probably more than 30 plus, but it said master cartographer, and so you have to like write that on your page. So once I did that, I was like, I had way less reason to go back, because yes, I enjoy the system of cartographers and playing, but suddenly, even though I'm not a super competitive person, it's like, well, but if I've already achieved what they said is like, you are a master cartographer, it's like, do I like this game enough just to play it for funsies? Like at that point, no, because I'd rather just try another game that I can that I'll have as much fun with or more, and see if I can, become the master of that one. So, yeah. Well, that was this is one of those topics where we could have almost have picked like any subsection of this topic, and it could have been the entire episode, because there's so much to say here. But having said all that, I'm stuffed. I don't know about you. So I think we're going to end it there. As always, you can find all of our videos and the majority of our content on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/allyoucanboard. And if you want to chat with us and our amazing community about this episode or board games, life, anything that we cover there, you can join our Discord. You can find the link in our show notes. And if you'd like to support us and what we're doing here on the podcast, on the channel, All You Can Board in general, you can consider leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice. I think technically Apple Podcasts is the one that impacts us the most. So if you could leave it there, that would be most appreciated. But in general, every rating, every review means a lot to us. It helps. And if you want to support us financially, we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/allyoucanboard. So if you want to help us continue to grow All You Can Board, make it possible for us to continue doing this, be able to help us get new equipment, to elevate different aspects, get perks, be able to potentially get free games, you can find all the details on Patreon. Otherwise, this has been episode 6 of the All You Can Board podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks for episode 7. See you then.
See ya.